You know, we got a lot of questions about Vince. Should I ask him now, or should we have some buffer topics in between?
Oh God, while we're on Vince's subject, let's go ahead, because I've got an email I want to read you also that's brought up something else we need to talk about. But go ahead.
This was sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Pamela in Bronx, New York. Do you think Vince McMahon's marriage to Linda is genuine or more a business arrangement? It seems Vince has little time for anything else besides running WWE. Outside of business, it appears Vince does not have any other interests or hobbies. So I wonder what kind of marriage or personal relationship someone like Vince would have.
I don't want to comment in front of millions of people around the world on other people's marriages and personal lives. Even Linda has become a public figure. Well, she, spent $100 million trying to run for Senate, so she wanted to be even more of a public figure than she was. But Vince and Linda were a very happily married couple for quite some time. I don't know that they spend as much time with each other as they used to, since they have their own individual interests. But I believe it's the best thing for business that they probably never get divorced. So there you go.
Okay, very diplomatic. This next Vince question.
I don't want to go into further speculation.
I think your answer will cause further speculation, but this next question sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Mark in Essex, England. Can Jim confirm or deny the rumor that Vince McMahon is awake 24 hours a day and sleeps 1 day a week?
What? No, I've never heard that, but no, that's even ridiculous even for Vince. I would say in the 90s, he might sleep 6 hours a night. But no, he never stayed up and then slept one. No, that's because then he would be mad he wasted a whole day if he slept one whole day. He prefers to get sleep over like everything else. Just get it over with so we get back to work.
You know, Helio Gracie, I believe, lived to be in his late 90s, and he said that one of the secrets to long life was getting at least, I think, 10 hours of sleep a night. Do you think all the years of not getting enough sleep catch up to someone like Vince?
Well, see, that's a problem again, is that it would catch up to any normal human, but Vince has never been a normal human. So maybe now, that maybe he has aged into normalcy. And yeah, I would think, you would have to, he has to be getting more rest or more sleep or more peace and quiet or just relaxation now than he did then, or elsewise I don't see how he'd still be living.
This next question sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Jay in San Antonio. Corny, lately there's been a lot of questions about Vince McMahon.
And by the way, Jay, are we just on such a familiar basis that you can say, hey, Corny?
Well, there was no hey, it was just Corny.
It's Corny.
Lately there's been a lot of questions about Vince McMahon. He's had a rough 2020 so far. My question to you is, who does he rely on to help him get through the tough times like this? Is it strictly family? Or does he have any close friends he can go to? Does he even have any legitimate friends?
Oh, God. I mean, you're asking me to read his mind as to how he feels about people. The only people that he is around on a regular basis are his family members, and I would think right now, I don't know where Shane is living. He's probably around or associates with Stephanie and Triple H more than anybody else in the family because he works with them. Any friends he has that he sees on a regular basis would either have to be coming to Connecticut or the various events, and they pretty much all work for the WWE also. I'm sure in the wrestling business, you consider people friends. You might not talk to them on the phone for 12 fucking years, but they're still a friend. But I mean, no, he's around the people that work for the company that he works with and his immediate family and whatever grandkids that they have these days. And that's pretty much it.
Our final question here from this Vince section of the program was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. I can't even speak. By Travis in New York City. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, so me and my dad always took the train up to Penn Station and watched the house shows at MSG. I'm about to turn 31 at the end of April, but when I was a kid, Stone Cold was hot as shit, and he was always working with Vince McMahon in one way or another. I can't remember when I was a kid, Stone Cold wasn't beating the shit out of Vince. My dad and his friend, who brought his kid to the show as well, always thought for how jacked Vince was and how he had some basic moves in the ring at some point, he had to learn how to work in front of a crowd under a mask. Do you know where or how Vince learned to take basic bumps? My dad has been gone coming up on 4 years now, but for his sake, did Vince work under a mask? Do you know how he learned to take bumps? Did he work under a mask?
Well, no. First of all, no, he did not ever work under a mask.
You've heard that rumor, though. I mean, that was something people used to say way back.
Actually, I've never heard that either.
Vince always wanted to be a wrestler, and his father wouldn't let him do it, but he wanted to show that he could do it. So at some point, he did wrestle under a mask. I don't think it's ever been proven to be true, but it was a rumor.
No, it's proven to be false right now. No, that's never fucking happened. Unless they did an angle when it was on Raw where it was Vince under a mask at some point. Somebody's going to come up with a picture. Maybe he did, but no. Not to anonymously learn how to work. No, Vince never wrestled under a mask. The first in the 90s in the Attitude Era, when they finally, I can't even remember what the first time he was in a ring for was. Was it Austin?
It was Austin, wasn't it?
It was Austin. Okay. I mean, they talked about it, and I don't even remember whether Vince went to the warehouse at the studio before that or after that. At some point, Vince did go and work out, depending on what the match was, a couple things with a couple of guys at the warehouse. I know Tom Pritchard helped out on a couple of occasions. He wasn't taking wrestling lessons to learn to work from scratch. It was, and obviously his work showed. He knew what this shit was supposed to look like, and he's an athletic guy. So he didn't completely look like, a fucking greenhorn, as they used to say, on everything, and he surprised a lot of people, but that's because he was going to work his ass off and do whatever it fucking took to do it right. But he more or less worked out a few things for each specific match that was coming up, just that he had to know, or that, whatever the fuck, right? A big bump or some shit like that, which is why you can tell his basics kind of suck, but at the same time, his matches were great because he was like he watched Buddy Rogers in person, for fuck's sake. He was the master of wrestling psychology, but he just had never done the shit at the age of fucking 50-something or whatever it was when he first started. So he looked green, but he got by. And plus it's Vince, so it's already going to be over because they'd never seen such a thing before. And then, after the first few years, I'd seen him do a couple of things after that I was like, I wish he hadn't gone that far. But, when you go back and look at those matches, and did he have one with Flair? On a pay-per-view.
Flair at the Royal Rumble and then Hogan at WrestleMania.
Yeah, so they were tearing the fucking house down, even if some of his shit looked shitty, because he knew what he was supposed to be doing, and the matches made sense, and it was Vince, and he was already over. But no, he never actually just had a match to just have a match. It was all for pay-per-view, big event, things like that.
One last Vince question here. This was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Dan in Melbourne, Australia. In the past, Jim has touched on various things Vince can't stand, won't allow in his wrestling product. Should say entertainment product. But can Jim shed any light on the style of wrestling and particular matches that Vince personally enjoys? Obviously, as a businessman, we know he likes anything that draws money, but on a personal level, did he ever talk about certain matches or programs that he loved? Or am I foolish to ever think of Vince as a wrestling fan rather than the cutthroat businessman that he is?
Well, now that question is worded that way, I remember Vince, if he liked somebody and somebody had done good business for him, and oh, what a pro he was. Oh, he was just great. Oh, he would praise individual people, but I don't remember him past when the match would actually happen. If it was a pay-per-view match, and he's, well, they did a great job, just a great job, or whatever, or he would praise a match. But I don't recall him off the top of my head right now, ever saying the words, wow, I remember this great match so-and-so had, or it was a great angle, or he didn't tell stories about how much he enjoyed a great match from the past or a great angle or whatever. He would praise individual people, and he'd say a match was good if it happened on his show and he was there and he watched it. But I don't recall much fondness for great matches of days gone by, because it may not have pertained to whatever the fuck we were talking about, current business, so he didn't bring it up.
He saw Buddy Rogers live. We've all heard the stories about him riding around with Dr. Jerry Graham. Did he ever talk about the wrestlers that he saw when he was a kid?
With the exception of Rogers and Jerry Graham, and even then, he's not going to launch into fucking stories to tell. That's one thing is me and Bruce, if we were sitting by ourselves, we'd tell a bunch of fucking old stories. But Vince was not one to launch into stories. He would reference people in making a larger point. And every once in a while, he'd have some fond one-sentence recollection of Dr. Jerry Graham or whatever. But he's not a fucking chit chatter and a recollector. So you didn't get a lot of stories.